Okay, Sinadapi, Nistu Nidaniko Mokoyo Sokoyi, Nistu Skapi Pikani. I I'd like to welcome you to the Native Wellness Institute's Power Hour. I'll be with you. My English name is Theda Newbreast. I'm a Blackfeet enrolled member on the Blackfeet Reservation, and I will be with you this next hour. I just got back from a nice snow walk. I'm gonna pay attention to the time and ask my colleagues if you're online to please kind of just say five minutes before the hour is over. I will take a good look at the clock. I wanted to begin by sharing a story with you. The title, some of the topics I'm going to talk about is something called poverty thinking and tips for dealing with grief during any challenge. We're in a pandemic right now, but we're also in a lot of other ceremonies, and we're in a lot of things that are going on in our lives. So I wanted to start with a story. I'm not going to wait for people to get on. You're either on or you aren't. I was taught the discipline of time, and I'm one of those old Indians. If they say it starts at 5, I get there at 4:30, and I get comfortable, I get grounded, and I get centered. We never run in late anyway. So I wanted to start. I've done some. You guys know who I am, and if you don't, that's okay. You don't need to know who I am. I'm just a human being. But part of my journey, I've learned some things about different medicines, and I wanted to start with a story and to do some teaching around sorrow medicine or grief medicine, and I'm sharing this without, I kind of feel like you're all out there. A lot of you have given me tobacco lately. A lot of you've always gifted me over the years with kind words, with all kinds of, you gave me all those horses, but I had to give them away. I don't have anywhere to keep them, eh? Anyway, I wanted to start with, and this is a kindness gesture of a teaching of a medicine that's always available when you're dealing with grief or sorrow. Um, and I'll start with the way that I learned about it. I think it was like 2000, about 5 years ago. We always on both sides in the Blackfoot Confederacy were Siksikai, Kainai, Abutsa Pikani, and Amskapi Pikani that you know as Blackfeet in the United States. And every summer we always, well, all of the solstice and the equinox, and during the time, even every month, a new moon, a full moon, we have ceremonies. But one of the ceremonies that happens on both sides of the border and has happened for centuries that we know of is something called the Okan, and it's like a medicine lodge or equivalent to like other tribes that have Sundance. So the story that I'm sharing with you began. It was about 5 years ago, and I live near Ninastico. It's the oldest piece of geological rock on this continent. We call it Chief Mountain, and it was some of my Ganaxtimidal brothers. I think Leon Rattler, Larry Grounds, and I think Wally was in there. And everyone comes up here to Bab. There's a really nice place at the Cattle Barren to have breakfast, and they were driving, going north to have breakfast. And you know how we all have that good feeling, we're going out to breakfast with our friends or our family. It's always a really good feeling. So think about that good feeling. Just create that now during this time of lockdown and when we're around. That really good feeling when you're. So they were heading up, and here next thing that off on Highway 89, there's it's one of the main roads that goes through our 1.5 million acres here. They saw this young gentleman, and I'm just telling you his story I apologize for the ringing phone. There's no way I can stop it right now, so I'm just going to keep talking. So they saw Stephen, and they didn't know his name was Stephen, but they recognized him because he had, as a person, because he had moccasins on, and he was light complected, because a complexion is a lot of times on our res you see a darker complected person, they're one of us. But there's this guy was light complected, and all of a sudden, you know how Indians are, like we're all in the car. You know how we are. We see something, we're like driving along, and when Indians see something that kind of catches their eye, they all go, all at the same time. So this is how they went to Stephen, and they, turned around and they said, "Hello, welcome to our welcome to our territory," and they introduced themselves. And Stephen was he was from British Columbia. He was from the bush, and he said that he had gone up on Chief Mountain. One of his elders was supposed to put him up there, and this elder didn't, or whoever was supposed to show up never showed up. So he had walked down the mountain, and he was looking for fish and berries that he could have, and he was going to go ahead and fast. And so when he breaks his fast, he could have those fish and berries, and that's why he was walking. So long story short, he gets in, the Ganaxdimidas take him to breakfast, because when you come here, we're going to feed you. And the greatest gift that you can give someone is to feed them. And even over this weekend, however, if you're missing being with your family, you had a turkey, you had a ham, just feed someone today. Cook for someone and give it to them. So Stephen ended up, staying with us for, I think, about 6 weeks. He helped us. He learned to build that okon. He learned to help with the sweat. He learned to go get the willows. He just learned a lot of stuff about putting things together. And we're kind of like that tribe. We try to humble you here. We aren't gonna, we're not like Google. Our elders aren't like an ATM machine that you just say, "What's this? What's the answer to this? What's this?" Like a lot of non-natives, and they're unknowing. They always say, "Well, how do you heal this? How do you heal?" So he understood that we were teaching him a lot in that short period of time. So this sorrow medicine, and the way I, I belong to the Crazy Dog Society here on this reservation. And there's Crazy Dog Societies at each of our 4, Siksikai, Kainai, Abutsapikani. And we were, the Crazy Dogs had come over here, because you know how it is here. We're always working on our plumbing. You always working on your plumbing on the rest, because something's always up. And when they were, I was waiting for, because I've been given a bag. The Okon was over, and our relatives from Saskatchewan that only have a Cree Sundance, all in Cree, had come and prayed with us, and they had given me a bag of this sorrow medicine. And so I knew it was called sorrow medicine, but before, Wilbur Fish always taught us, before we use any of that kind of medicine, to understand it and to know the story. So I was waiting till, we sat down to eat. I'd cooked for everybody, and we'd gotten food, and and then I kind of just put it out there, because that's appropriate time to ask a question. That's when you can Google your elders, kind of, and I had some of it. I held it up, and it's the fungus of white diamond willow. And I asked out, I said, "Can you tell me about this sorrow medicine for healing?" And before any of the Blackfeet can answer, Stephen answered. And so Stephen, he just started saying, "Long time ago," and I'm going to tell you the shortened version. This may be told over a long period of time. He said, "Long time ago, when there was just one human being, this human being had been put on the earth, and this human being had was wondering, and they discovered they could drink water, but they didn't know this feeling that they were having. Um, it was hunger, on that first day they didn't know, but they didn't know what they could eat, like what was safe to eat and what was not safe to eat. And so as they went along, they this human being started to feel the hunger, and he slept that night. And the next day he woke up and he felt that yearning to have sustenance, to have some kind of energy. And but he went on and he drank water. He was able to drink water, but that third day he just felt, and that's kind of like sometimes maybe there's the teaching of the 4-day fast. That third day he was just really really hungry, and he came in, and he sat. He slept again, and on that fourth day. He was so hungry. He was just so hungry that he cried. My dog Okan Ironpipe is crying to come in, so I'm gonna take a pause, and I'm sorry. I have to take care of animals. He thinks something's up, so I'm gonna let him in. So Stephen, when he was telling the story on the fourth day, he books put. That means come here, come in. Black. So on that fourth day, when he sat down and he was so hungry, he started to cry. He just cried. And where he sat down, there was this white diamond willow right near him. And he just, his hunger was so deep. He was sobbing, and then that white diamond willow took pity on him. He might have said, "No gaikimokit, no gaspomokit." That's a very common. Have pity on me. Help me. And that white diamond willow put the branch over that human being and comforted him. And that human being just cried. He just cried until his snots came out. That's a really good cry. And that's some of what you should be doing during this time. Just cry. Cry till your snots come out. You're releasing. It's perfectly okay. So he's crying, and then when the white diamond willow was crying, that fungus, it, kind of looks sometimes like an egg. I've got just ground white sorrow medicine. His tears were from the tears of that white diamond willow is that medicine. And then when you cry, you got to cry till your snots come out. But there's always a time, in grief. And when you're crying, you'll kind of like you're done. You're catching yourself. And so when this human being did that white diamond willow kind of like bumped him, and he goes, "Hey, guess what? No problem. All you have to do is follow that bear. And if you follow that bear around, whatever that bear consumes, you can consume. That's that he'll teach you." And there's on and on. And so that was the story of the sorrow medicine. And so I want you to think about something that is called remote prayer. And right before we started here, I was visiting with Jolene earlier, and because, me and Jolene, we can think of all kinds of things. And I told her, Jolene, I said, I'm just going to say my prayers, and whatever comes out of my mouth, I really hope it helps you. And so this sorrow medicine, right? So I lit some. And in remote healing, what I do know is you don't have to be in the presence of it. It's just like when you're out, you don't have to have your pipe or your rattle, or even if you believe other ways, your Bible or whatever you use to connect to Istapatapio, your creator, your God. We all have one God. We call them different things. And so this remote, I lit this because I believe it's prayer. I believe it's ceremony. I believe it's kindness. I believe it's helping each other, that we can do that remote. Because right now, this virus is teaching us very good lessons about what our resources are when we can't just run down and get our nails done. Look at how pitiful my nails are. I was just thinking, maybe I'm supposed to go back to just, it's the one self-love thing that I do all the time. But so that sorrow medicine, I lit some. So I believe it's not me. I'm just a regular, common human being. But I do believe that you heard that story, and I've lit some of that white diamond willow fungus. That it will go out and help you in whatever. And the grief, we're not only losing life, we're having grief for loss of a job. We're having grief for, we might have missed the April 1st payment of rent or mortgage payment. We might be thinking, are they going to repossess my vehicle? All kinds of, there's those kinds of grief. So be thinking too, you might think about the grief of past chapters of your life. When your children were small, when when you lived with a person that you no longer live with, they may be thinking about, you have some remnants of grief to be thinking about that. So I wanted to start with and I'm going to look up at the clock. I wanted to share a couple other stories with you, and in these stories, I think that you'll get what you need in this, this power hour. And my hat's off to NICWA, the National Indian Child Welfare Association, Terry Cross, and all of the disciples, apprentices, mentors over the years. It's just an incredible, NICWA's an incredible organization, is sponsoring this. And they came, we've allied, they've been our ally, and they believe that NWI, our team, there's hundreds of us, they believe that we should go on every day and give encouragement and give hope. And our mission in NWI is to keep the teachings of our ancestors alive. So that's what we're doing. So I wanted to, the topic area is around poverty thinking. And so one of the things, and we've got, I just love our people. We've got humor around, things like toilet paper. We've got humor around, people going to shop and hoarding. So let's just talk about that type of what we're seeing over the years. And each tribe has a history. And each tribe has a loss and grief over land, over language, over and there's a lot of tribes that they're reclaiming it and they're getting it back and they're keeping it, and they're and the more power to you. That's what we got to do. We got to keep our language, we got to keep our ways, and look at the resiliency. So in this this poverty, I think it's attached to sometimes the thinking. That thinking where, I got to tell it in the story because I guess that's how I tell things. I don't do death by PowerPoint, and I'm not going to talk about best practices and beat you to death with that. This was, might have been about 12, 13 years ago. And you can relate it to your urban area or to your reservation, but it has to do with understanding poverty thinking. So there was this spirit shoe, these really fancy, smancy European shoes that cost a lot of money, over $100 per pair. And that company thought, and often they think, oh, these poor, pitiful reservation Indians. So they brought a couple truckloads, and they told everyone on the res, and we have 18,000 enrolled members and 20,000 descendants with a quarter blood or less. So they had told everyone, and not, most of us live on the reservation. I see most of us. We have a lot that live in the Seattle area and around the country. And we have a lot of our relatives who live up in Alberta. But they brought in this type of thinking. They brought in these 2 truckloads of these fancy shoes. And of course, at the tribe, they tried. Our tribe is good. They tried to just get people's name and your shoe size. So what ended up with these hundreds and hundreds of pairs of shoes is that they couldn't keep a rhythm or a system in place. So a lot of they might have been tribal employees, whoever got the news first, because sometimes it's just those that live in Browning, out in Bab or Hart Butte, or we were thought of after. And so anyway, some people, that wore size 10 shoe, they went and they said, I have to get it for my daughter. And so that some people got like 7 pairs of new shoes. Some people got 10 pairs of new shoes. And then some people got no new shoes. So I want you to think about that, in that when you come from trauma, when you come from them trying to wipe you out with smallpox, which they did. They gave us blankets infected with smallpox, first germ warfare. So when you're thinking, when there's a resource, and now we're thinking as we're going into this pandemic about the resources, whether it's food, whether it's propane, whether it's whatever the resource is, toilet paper, that we may just jump into our old type of thinking and think, I gotta go get 82 rolls of toilet paper. But I want you to stop. And don't hoard, don't, be sensible, get your maintenance food. But don't get into what is fear. And the fear, the hoarding, that type of thinking, and before I move on, another example of this poverty type of thinking, and it's attached to trauma, is that in our communities right now, as we heal, and we're doing an incredible amount of healing, and one of the areas that we're starting to heal around is embezzlement. All of our tribes are now, embezzlement is going out of style, and people are going to jail. And it's our own people. But that idea, and it's an idea of entitlement, and kind of, so be with me. When you've been traumatized and you've been poor, or you didn't have cash economy, you didn't have that coming in, you that hurt people. So that hurt might transform itself into some kind of entitlement. Like, I'm entitled to this. I'm entitled to, getting this check. I'm entitled to go travel. I'm entitled to go to Vegas. I'm entitled to go, to some kind of big conference, in gaming. I'm entitled. So that entitlement, we might take a little, we might take a little bit more, and we believe that our embezzlement, our stealing, our theft is justified. So think about that side. So let's talk about some of the healing of it. Some of the circle justice around it. We often call a Gaxtamon, decision making, circle justice. Sometimes we have to allow our people to earn their way back. And so in this, I have to, one more, I guess another story. Let's see, I'll be April 20th, same day as Adolf Hitler. Like, ooh. Anyway, he has the same birthday as me, so it could be used for good or bad, and I'm trying to use it for good. I will be 64, and so I grew up in a couple of cycles of challenges. When I was born in 1960, so think about there's 577 tribes plus. On every tribe, they have a history of when they first got cash. And for some of us, like on this reservation in 1960 in the Montana area, the average income for a family was $912 per year. Per year. And that was because we lived off the land. We lived off the land, and we didn't have much need for, we bartered, we made things, people traded. There was not a need for cash. And so sometimes this cash is, and you'll see it in Alaska, you see where they became a cash economy. So, I was raised, and I'm just, because I'm a different generation I'm not a millennial, and I cannot think like a millennial because I haven't had that short experience. So we used to, back in the 60s, and because we went on relocation, so I grew up in an urban area of Oakland, California, and San Francisco during the civil rights. We used to have this term. I got into UC Berkeley when I was 17. We're all smart. We can do that. But when I was there, I was surrounded by 200 different tribes. Omaha. A lot of them were full blood. There was this. His name was Roy Hopkins. Anyway, all of the older, I was just still a teenager, and they kept telling me, Theda, don't become a poverty pimp. So me, what's a poverty pimp? What's that? And so they explained to me, they said, just watch. We're here and to get a degree from Berkeley and to graduate and to make a lot of money. A poverty pimp is someone who, raises themselves up, and maybe economically, it may be in the way that they talk. However, whatever, gets a house, as they raise themselves up, they forget where they came from. They forget to help their people. They forget to help their elders. They forget. And especially if there's been trauma, they just want to put that on the back burner, and they move to the city and they never come home. And so they were telling me that. And so I'm just mentioning this because all of a sudden I just thought, how could you do that? How could you do that? Roy Hopkins would call me every 5 years. I mean, I got a couple degrees from Berkeley. I have my master's in public health, and we were trained on pandemics. My degrees in prevention, So anyway, so he would call me every 5 years, and this is how our conversation would go. He'd go, "Hey, I'm just checking on you," and then to see if I was a poverty pimp. And I would go, no, Roy, no, I'm still working for the people. I'm working for the people. I'm working for the collective agreement. I'm working for, so that we have whatever we have gets spread. Anyway, so I want you to think about, Jillian and I were visiting. We were saying, some people are going to get a check and a direct deposit, and maybe some will be a few weeks later. And I was telling her, that's for how many Indians that filed their income So I'm just kidding. I know you do. I know you do. I'm not telling you. No. But I was just saying, there's all these rules around that. And so I said, when they have all those rules, I just don't think that the Indians are going to get much. Usually there's so many rules, the Indians just aren't included. So since we're not included, so what? We never been included. So let's include ourselves. Let's look at how we can help each other. Let's look at how we can be kind to each other. Let's look at, I was thinking, even just, if you have some extra rolls, kind of go down go cruise down the res or cruise down where there's a bunch of Indians and just give out, like when we have a parade or we have something, just like give out rolls of toilet paper, put it in a Ziploc and it'd be nice, put it in a Ziploc and just give whatever you have. And if what you have is a song, this morning, my brother Rick Two Dogs, Ethleen Two Dogs, just giving people. I'm not Lakota, but I can respect, because it's Cecilia Fire Thunder. He sang an encouragement song, and I was out in the snow, and I just sat there, and I cried for happy, because that person, Rick Two Dogs, he, with that song, gave me the feeling of encouragement. So for those of you who can sing, and even if you can't sing, sing to somebody. Sing a lullaby. Make up a pandemic lullaby. Come on, you guys. We could have by August, maybe by Crow Fair, we'll put up $1,000. Whoever has the best pandemic song, So, be generous. Be thinking of the other ways that you can give back. And one of I wanted to just talk. I'm the person. There's. I want to have some talking points here, and so I'm gonna talk about this feeling of fear and of grief and the feelings of what parts of our body that it might hurt, and how we can heal it and how we can take care of it. So right now, I'll just ask all of you, start keeping a journal of how much you're sleeping. And what's good for you? Do you need 7 hours and you feel good? Do you need 8 hours? Whatever that is, and try to get that much. And even it's okay to nap now. It's okay just to chill out. You don't have to be figuring out something to do. That energy of I've got to do so. I got to do something. Sometimes that's a message that we received. If we're not doing something, then we're quote unquote lazy. And that's not, there's right now we need to do self-care and take care of ourselves. So I wanted to talk about these feelings, and a lot of this learning, one of my mentors is Avis Archambal, and Avis was the first person that that made sense, that could articulate this. So when we're in grief, when we're grieving, the place that it will manifest itself inside of our body is most often the lungs and the respiratory, your sinuses and your lungs. I was just wondering, geez, I'm kind of greasy. No, it's okay. Is it, Indian oil of Olay, Indians were real greasy. So that's why even when we get older, we still look okay because we're just all greased up. No, anyway, anyway, I enjoy life. So grief. So when we're grieving, common symptoms is it will attack your lungs. So that's why Native Wellness Institute, we want you to protect your lungs. Your lungs and your breathing, because often it's like when my dad died. That year after, I had 6 episodes of what would be flu, and one went to bronchitis because my body was crying out loud. I was grieving. And part of grief might be, a sinus headache. Always got, they're always taking sinus medicine. But that's actually, some grief healing. And so that part of your body is vulnerable. So you might want to, one of the remedies to that is, and I've talked about the cayenne pepper, but there's nettles, there's eucalyptus, there's, I was thinking about my pet skunks. One of them they sprayed the other night, and I thought, ooh, that's really good medicine. That opens up your passageways, and so I want to talk about fear. And so, and a lot of us, it's okay to be in fear. It's okay to fear, those closest to us. If someone has tested positive and you're trying to keep them off the respirator, you're just trying to take care of them. That's okay. So, fear, the part, and this is, I can hear Avis because she was teaching me acupuncture and other remedies to heal people, is the part that it attacks you is your kidneys. And so you'll see someone who is not good with fear and always in fear, from Dr. Deb Pace. I'll have to call her later. They might have renal failure later on, kidney stones, might have to get rid of one kidney dies, and they have to have a kidney transplant. So that's an area. So then what's the remedy? So, and one of the things when we have fear, several things will bring you out of that. Light a smudge, say a prayer, meditate, hold on to your children, hug your life partner. Just look at the things that will, tell that passes. What's the coping mechanism? I've always been, one of, and I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'll have 32 years May 3rd, and I've always been told to, if you're going through something, then get up and go help another person. So maybe the remedy when you have fear is to go help someone else, or to express it, just to articulate it. So so that's grief and fear, but I also wanted to talk about a couple other feelings and what parts of our body we got to really protect and pay attention to. And the other feeling is anger. Anger and frustration. Anger. And this is, I could just hear, Avis was that kind of teacher. I can just hear her. I always loved her grandma voice. A person that has a lot of fear will have gallstones, and they'll have their gallbladder taken out early. They'll have, and the stones are kind of an indication, how long they've been in fear. And so your body's going to tell on you. So a lot of, especially during this time, there's a lot of fear. So what can we do? What can we do to conquer that? One of the things is, raise your hand if you're binging. I'll binge. We've got some extra time. I never had time to watch TV. I was always doing other things, but this is the first time in my life I could, watch some of those things. So anyway, think about the things that you do to bring your fear, to bring your grounding. I'll just mention a couple things. So, one of the things that you can do, because if you can't get in a sweat lodge or you can't be in your place of worship, is to go out and to lay on the ground. Just lay on the earth and ask the earth to take whatever's not good inside of you. The fear or whatever feelings that don't feel good, and ask the earth to renew you. And so that anger, in my family, and I won't name names, we have poster child, 100 gallbladder stones, and of course, we always kind of have humor, when we were teasing one of my relatives when they had all of their stones taken out, that we were gonna take them and decorate them and put them on their dance outfit, kind of like a coup, instead of like these nice elk teeth. You would have your gallstones on your traditional outfit. That'd be nuts, huh? Anyway, so the other feeling, and it just has to do with why we should practice wellness and self-care, is loss. When you have loss, and right now we're experiencing a lot of loss. We're losing an old way of living. We're losing a job, maybe. We might be losing a relative, or we're really in fear because we might have some of our relatives that have asthma, or are diabetic, or heart disease, and we just don't want them to succumb to this virus. So this loss, the part that it gets us is in our heart. And that's why we always have these terms. We say they died of a broken heart. And so to mend our heart, to look at taking care of ourselves, think about all the things that that bring you joy. And so one of the things that you can go about the day is just like lately I was just saying, what brings this brings me joy. Eating that pear today that was ripe brings me joy. Being able to walk, that brings me joy. Talking and hearing, singing, watching, social distancing powwow and getting up and, jingle dancing or grass dancing, grass dance for yourself, look at the things that bring you joy. And, in this time, even today, make a list of gratitude every day. In our recovery program, they're always saying get up and start listing at least 3 things that you're grateful for. But I would encourage you, even just have a vision board. Sometimes something visual, and just jot down the things that you're grateful for. Whatever they are. You might be grateful that you saw an eagle fly over. You might be grateful that you, most of I have a pet fox, and that fox, I think, is an ancestor that reminds me and teaches me. But it's been coming for about 10 years, and I was thinking about it. How do you get a pet fox? And he actually, when I say books of butts in a pa, he comes to me now. And I was thinking, that brings me joy. But lately, like I've been when I do give him something, like I'll give him a frozen chicken. I even give him like a dog bones. And then my life partner, one of his nieces, sent me a bunch of like chicken jerky for. Anyway, when I give it to him, I ask him if he'll pray for everybody. And lately, like I'll give him something and I'll say, please, can you help everybody who has a virus and is desperately trying to breathe? Please help them. And it's weird because like he'll like look at me, and it's kind of like he goes, like he's gonna pray. So I've been asking him, can you please send a prayer out to every person who has been in lockdown and who is having some aha moments of it's kind of like we're Indians, we're all under house arrest, eh? we're definitely know how animals in the zoo feel when they can't get out. That's why I can't go to zoos. I want to bust them all out. Anyway, but think about that that healing, that gratitude, and what brings joy. And so sometimes we need to think about the boundaries around us. What are our boundaries? What new boundaries do we need? Like I was just feeling it's kind of cool, but everyone's saying, "Hey, can you be on this talking circle? Hey, can you do that? Hey, can you do that?" And I was thinking, shoot, I could be online, and so I'm going to have to start saying no. I'm going to have some boundaries and help when I can and do the self-care. And so think about your self-care. And while you're thinking about it, I was the notes to myself is in this loss that hurts our heart, makes us get stents and have heart attacks and all that, is we have to look at that sometimes that loss in the grief is as big as the love. So if you loved your old lifestyle and it meant moving all around, or you loved a person and they're no longer there, if it's a big love, you have to practice tenderness. Practice tenderness. Be more tender to yourself. Use words that are tender. It's like go out and say, you're a tenderness warrior. I'm going to go out and be a tenderness warrior. Everything I do, I'm going to do it with a tender pace, with a tender gesture, with a tenderness. It's almost like, when we hold our children, that tender lullaby, when we just love them up, that feeling of love, that tenderness, you have to be tender with yourself. So that means not maxing yourself out, That means eating good. Even drinking water, we learned, one of our NWI mates was always telling us, no matter how much you weigh, if you weigh 200 pounds, divide it in half. You got to drink 100, ounces of, and I'm sorry if, I can't do the metric. That means if I'm not going to do that, you should drink, at least, 4 liters. And, be that kindness to yourself, that tenderness to yourself. So I wanted to I was visiting. I want to talk about a couple things. I'm gonna look at the time. I still got some good time with you. I wanted to talk about the discipline of fasting, because we're all on a forced pandemic fast right now. And in fasting, fasting time, there's always, you have to let go of the outside world. You have to stay in prayer. You do best if you stay in prayer. So if you can stay in prayer most of your day, you got it. But that I was asked my mother this morning, and I'm mentioning her because my mother used to fast 4 times a day. Most of our life. And so I just said, Mom, she's 81, she'll be 82. And I said, Mom, when did you start that fasting 4 times every year? And usually it was on the equinox or the solstice. And she said, well, let's see. She said, I went to DQ Sundance for over 20 years, and that started, and then I started before that. So since 1980, my mother, up on just till a few years ago, fasted four times for a year. And I'm mentioning that because it taught her a discipline. And I was thinking about, we're learning a discipline. What in this pandemic, or what in this time, what have you started to learn that is a good discipline? So our discipline might be, if we're working at home, that we have to have a new routine. That, maybe we got to pray with our family. We got to ask them to say a work prayer for us and make sure everything's taken care of. Because I've been on some calls lately where the kids are screaming in the background, or the kids are running around, and we're just saying it's okay. Just let it happen. We're just pay attention to what we're doing. We're in our home, but think about what the discipline that you need, and when you're doing, say your work stuff, and then the discipline, since you're not flying on a plane or you're not driving home. How do you need to switch that gear? What's the boundary? And so the boundary might be to shut the phone off. I've just been I just been noticing I'm more peaceful if I wake up, you know, say my prayers, go for my walk. Sometimes I've been smoking my pipe every day because that's our instruction. Is that pipe is for the people. Is and I do all of that before I turn on the phone. Because I think that if you wake up and how could your God be your phone? Do not let your God. I've never seen anyone. Well, maybe maybe for some people, but put some boundaries on that phone. Put some boundaries on that. You just gotta. I notice that if I floor and roll around with my dog, or I see my little relatives, or I just notice when I'm with someone, I say totally present. I look at, and when I look in people, I think that's when you do see God, because you see when you look into their eyes. I always sometimes people will be talking, and I'm looking into their eyes, and I'm saying a prayer for them, that they have a long life, that they get to see their great grandchildren, that they have joy, that they have comfort, that they have contentment, that they have a good feeling of accomplishment, that they're good enough. So sometimes when you'll see me, if I'm looking in your eyes, I'm just praying to you, because that you look in someone's eyes, you can see their soul, who they're really about. And sometimes, so maybe you should think about the boundaries of self-care. Like, it's interesting because, like, to when we have to, when people are going to see us, I took a long hot bath. I smelled all kinds of good things when I was on my walk, and I was smelling some eucalyptus. I lit some smudge. I have a smudge going, different aromas, lavender to go to sleep. I have this plan, and think about this too for you, to put fresh lavender plants hanging in your bedroom and in your nest, so that's a place for when you lay down to dream. So be thinking about those kind of disciplines around this fasting time that we have. I wanted to cover a couple other just thoughts, and these are tips for healing from anything, grief, anything. Is one of our gatherings here, and I'm going to talk about it in the sense of um, Irene Lastar. And she comes to my mind because our elders, we were trying to, and it's good to ask in your language. How do you say resiliency? How is wellness? How is harmony? What's the word for that? What is resiliency? We had this gathering, and it was in a circle, and it was a Gona, and Irene Lastar, and I'm saying it how the dialect of Amskapi Pikani. She said long time ago there was a reference, and she heard that word because some of our men went to the Korean War, but it was a word used before a long time ago when there might have been a battle or a war, and a lot of people died, and this one lone warrior came back. This one Skapi Pikani came back, and they called it a Botsitsi Komatan, a miracle survivor. So all of you with us in this power hour, think about the miracle survivors in your tribe. And she went on to say, in the World War II, World War One, Vietnam. There was all these miracle survivors. So think about us when this is all kind of passed over and we've learned, and it's coming. It's coming. We're the miracle survivors, and we're starting fresh. We're starting with each other. We're starting to, with our kind heart, to help each other. And what is going to be the way that we operate? And it might be completely different than how we used to operate in our new world. So the other thing that, and I'm glancing up, let's see, I will look, is I wanted to talk about rites of passage. And I'll frame it, and I'm holding my phone because I don't want to try to rebalance and drop and do all that stuff. And so I'm sorry. Woo. Sorry, I don't know. I just think that's funny. Like woo woo. Is if you could hold your hand in a circle, and I'm just gonna do a half hand. Imagine my other hand that's holding the phone, and if you hold both of your hands together to make a circle, and I'm repeating what I heard from one of my relatives, Roger Prairie Chicken, is that your left thumb in making this whole circle with both of your hands is when you're born, and then if you come up that left thumb at your index fingers when you're 25 years old, and then when you're holding your hands together making the circle at the top is when you're 50 years old, and then when you come back around that index finger, it's when you're 75 years old, and then when you do that whole circle, it's usually about 100 years. That's what you're promised if you take good care of your body, to live in this physical body. You never die, but there's rites of passage. And so think of this time with this challenge of this virus as being one of your rites of passage. And it's actually, every rites of passage is a ceremony, and try to glean or to grab out of this time the things that you learned. The things that become important. What is important? So, like for example, often a common with natives, a rite of passage for us is to get our Indian name, and sometimes we get one or two. I just got my second Blackfoot name, so I'm in a rite of passage. I'm growing and transforming into it. It means I'm still learning. I'm not that other person I'm transforming into. So in the rite of passage, we might have other rites of passage. When you have your first child, that's a rite of passage. When you have your first marriage, that's a rite of passage. When you have, when you change into puberty, that's a rite of passage. And there's many, many rites of passage. So I'll mention, and because I've never been a man, I've only been a woman in this life. And I'll mention a rite of passage just to think of how significant every rite of passage, like this passage that we're in with this pandemic, is with women. And this rite of passage usually happens when they had their last bleed, when your menstrual cycle ends. And then you go an entire year, and then you're going into that rite of passage. And as soon as you get into that rite of passage, and that's what's happening with us, our thinking is changing, our world is changing. A lot of times, and I'm just saying because this is my experience, and I can only speak from experience. I'm not speaking from something that was published by someone else. With women, they begin to reassess how long they have lived, and it dawns on them. They start to it dawns on them that when they were younger, they made all these decisions based on hormones, not their authentic self. And once that happens, then they begin a journey to become their authentic self, who they really are. And they might, that's then they make those decisions. Woo, I made some decisions based on hormones and they weren't good ones. Or I made some good ones based on hormones and they were excellent. So think about that rite of passage. And so when we're going through this time with this pandemic, or this time where we're isolated, or this time where we're indoors, is that we're like that rite of passage. We're going to come out different in a good way for our authentic self. And so I just I'm starting to envisioning. I was thinking, ooh, I want to take a road trip with my life partner, just where we just kind of go on and explore. I'm seeing things. Our Native Wellness Institute. We're looking forward to our annual in Kauai, Hawaii. I'm looking forward to with my NWI family in Hawaii. So come join us. I just want to do a couple things to invite you. Tomorrow is Lavina Louie. Ooh, Lavina. La, 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 and Robert Johnson. Right on, Robert. They'll be doing the Power Hour. And then I also want to tell you that on Saturday, our new schedule will be coming out. We've got a special guest of Leroy Not Afraid on Saturday at noon, and I'm going to be interviewing him. And his topic is around healing with missing and murdered. And you all know his daughter, Selena, Not Afraid, that we're still healing from. But Leroy Not Afraid is is going to be on Saturday, and there'll be our new look to our Facebook site. It'll go up with, we have several new people next week, and then Friday night. You know how NWI is. We have late night, like a power hour with some dynamite, like Martin on there. We're gonna have Grandma and Lavina doing commercials. It's just kind of what we're trying to be with you, to show that we can all do this together. We're all in this together, and so that we can practice wellness with each other and a connection for all of this type of healing. And so anyway, we invite you to do that. I'll just Jolene, if you let me know how much time I got left, there's a couple other things I'd like to talk about, so I'm just gonna go into those subject areas. And I was thinking about what are the tips in grieving? And there's many teachings around this, but you should make a spirit plate every time you're eating. Like, if you have, some people have 2 meals, some people have 3 meals. Some of you think your exercise is going to the refrigerator and opening and closing. That's not exercise. But I was thinking, like if you've been triggered, like I was even thinking, like thinking about my dad's been gone 18 years. I need to make a spirit plate. Sometimes you make take whatever you're eating, like the spirits, little people, they just like little bites. So you take a little and you put it on there and you smudge it and you offer it out. And it invites, what it does is it makes a spiritual doorway that they can come and eat. So you put their favorite food. So tips for grieving: if you are losing someone or you're afraid, make their favorite meal, smudge it, and put it out. Put that spirit plate out and invite the spirits to come and eat, and then ask for your prayer. So I was thinking that would be something. The other thing that I wanted to speak to is, and I got mine, this is a decision making coin. And some of us are making some very vital decisions, like about what we're going to do after this pandemic. And a decision making coin, the way that, and Richard Horn learned this from Mike Swimsunder. And so, NWI team, we all made our own decision making coins. And you can help make a child's decision making coin when they're young. And what it is like this is an antler. You just slice it up like how you slice bologna, cut it. And on one side, one side means yes. So this is my yes side. And one side means no. And so and you choose the symbols. So this is our old symbol of in the Blackfoot Confederacy. This is a symbol for Amskapi Pikuni. So my yes is anything to do that will help my people. I will say a yes to. And then if it's a no, I put green, because so far in my life, I've just seen some really horrific things happen because of greed. And because of greed, I think is not a good thing. So that means no. And so in these decision-making coins, that when you have these, and I've only used this. Sheesh. I haven't used this in a few years. And one time I did lend it to a very good friend who had to make a decision. So when you're taught to invite your ancestors in the universe to help you make these decisions. So maybe you should make a decision-making coin as part of this fast, being in this pandemic. And what you do is you say prayers with this coin, and you invite, the stars and the moon, the Gakadoksikoan, the star people, as many stars as there are in the galaxies in the universe. You invite them. You invite the water spirits. You invite Sakum, the earth. You invite all your ancestors, and you ask the question. And then whatever the question is, you throw this decision making over your head. And whatever it lands on the ground, that you've asked for help in making that decision. So they'll answer, this is no, and this is yes. And so I'm sharing with you that maybe every decision that you just make in this 24 hours, that's the other thing, is just live today. Just do the best you can living today. Just live today, this 24 hours, and then sleep good. But if you're at a decision-making point, because some of us are going to be like, do I apply for unemployment? Do I buy more bullets? No, because in Montana, they bought all the bullets out. Anyway, talk about, that poverty thing. Anyway, so it might be a decision to do more self-care, to spend more time with your family. And in making that decision, you might ask a question and then get a yes or no. So I'm thinking, sorry, I went over a little bit time, but that's too bad. That's just how I am. I'm going to ask you to tune in every day. Native Wellness Institute as the Power Hour. I was the guest today. I'm from the Blackfeet Reservation. Kia ora to all our Maori, to all of our Aboriginal friends, to all of our First Nations and Métis across Canada, and to all of our tribes in the lower 48. Gitsikako, Mim. I love you.